Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, a coup within a coup. The head of the military junta that ousted Mali's president last year does it again. There's international backlash against the seizing of power by interim Vice President Colonel Assimi Goïta. Also, communities around the eastern Congolese city of Goma struggle to come to terms with the devastation caused by the eruption of Africa's most active volcano. Two huge cracks open up in the city. Hundreds of children are still in search of their parents. And Worldwide Africa Network. To mark Africa Day, May 25th, a week-long celebration of African achievement kicks off with the WAN Festival. We hear from some of the heavy hitters throwing their weight behind the virtual summit. But first, international pressure is mounting on Mali to release the president and prime minister after they were arrested by the military on Monday. President Ba Indao and Premier Mokhtar Wan's detention is the latest chapter in the country's political crisis. The pair were leading a transitional government that took over after the military forced former President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta from power last August. The African Union, regional group ECOWAS, the US and others have called for Indao and Wan's immediate release. The EU and France have threatened sanctions.
In the immediate term, we demand the release of the authorities, whose safety must be guaranteed, and the immediate resumption of the normal course of the transition. I know that the former president of Nigeria, Mr. Goodluck, is in Bamako to put forward the views of the countries in the region. I would like to make it clear that if there is no return to the normal course of the transition, we will take immediate targeting measures against those military and political leaders who are obstructing the transition.
Well, Vice President Colonel Assimi Goïta's taken the reins once more. He also led the military junta that ousted President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta last year. Nicolas Chemin tells us more.
It was less than a year ago that Malian President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta was toppled. A few hours later, Assimi Goïta showed that he was the country's new strongman.
Nous n'avons plus droit à l'erreur. Donc nous, en faisant cette intervention hier, nous avons mis le pays au-dessus, le Mali d'abord. Raison pour laquelle nous les avons assuré notre soutien et leur dire de commencer à travailler, car nous n'avons plus droit à l'erreur.
9 months later, the 38-year-old colonel has toppled another president and prime minister. He did not appreciate that two of his allies were removed from the new government. Goïta has been vice president since September, but many Malians know very little about him.
On sait par le biais de ses proches, de ses camarades de promotion, c'est quelqu'un de très timide, mais également de très rigoureux et très sérieux dans le travail. Côté politique, on ne dira pas que c'est un homme politique. Il n'a jamais été impliqué dans la gestion publique. Il n'est pas un homme politique aguerri et il manque d'expérience à ce niveau.
Assimi Goïta went to the best military schools in Mali. He was also trained in the US and Europe. A prestigious career, but now he is coming under fire from all sides. The African Union, the European Union and the US have all condemned his actions. French President Emmanuel Macron said some members of the regime could face sanctions if the political situation in Mali was not clarified.
The death toll from the eruption of Mount Nyiragongo in eastern DR Congo has risen to 32. 3 days after the disaster, and tremors still shake the region around the city of Goma. On Tuesday, two huge cracks, hundreds of meters long, opened up near the main hospital and near the airport. The rivers of molten lava have devastated whole communities. Many fear fresh eruptions, and unsure of where to turn to for help, some are trying to do what they can for each other.
Many families have opened their homes to strangers as a refuge. That's a good thing. But we worry that this will create a sanitation problem with things such as cholera. What's important is that the government does more to bring help to the victims.
So thousands of people have lost their homes and hundreds of children are either missing or have been separated from their parents. Livia Ackland is in Goma. She tells us more about what she's been seeing.
Just moments before I started this broadcast, there was another earthquake there are earthquakes around every 20 or 30 minutes, and they seem to be getting stronger, which is worrying. We don't quite know if the earthquakes could mean that it's the end of the eruption. In 2002, there was a big volcanic eruption here. Hundreds of people were killed. And at the end of the eruption, there were a series of earthquakes. So we don't know if it's that, or we don't know if it means that pressure's building inside the volcano and there's likely to be another eruption. Lots of people are still evacuating. Various humanitarian staff I know working here are evacuating. Lots of Congolese people haven't come back yet from Rwanda. Thousands of people crossed into Rwanda on Saturday night. And worryingly, a crack has opened up in the ground close to the hospital, and people are alarmed that if there is another eruption, lava might explode from that crack, which would mean that the lava really would engulf parts of the city centre, because that's right in the heart of the city. Luckily, on Saturday night, the lava stopped. It didn't reach the city, it stopped on the sort of northern edge, but it did still melt 2 districts. There weren't many casualties. So far, the death toll is 34 people, which is still tragic, but it could have been much worse. It was much worse in 2002. But about 500 people lost their homes, and I was with people the next morning, and they were picking bits of metal up bits of metal from the rubble, trying to recover their possessions, but everything had really just melted, and it was just this pile of kind of black rocks, smoking black rocks with this really strong sulfurous smell. Hundreds of children are still separated from their families. According to UNICEF, 500 children were separated from their families on the night of the eruption, and they're still looking for them. I was in various transit centres yesterday. I saw some happy reunions, which was really nice, of mothers who had found their children and were weeping tears of joy. I also saw lots of desperate, frustrated mothers who were going from centre to centre, hospital to hospital, searching for their children. I spoke to a mother who said she'd gone to the morgue, that she'd lost hope, and she'd gone to the morgue to see if her children were there. Luckily, they weren't there. In fact, that was one of the mothers who found her children. She was about to give up hope, and then she turned up at the centre, and her children were there, and she was reunited with them. But no, the situation's bad. The water supplies, the lava melted a lot of water pipes in the north of the city, so water supplies are very erratic, and lots of the city is not receiving any water. The electricity, most of the electricity has been turned off since the eruption. My house has a generator that's whirring in the background, and we're just waiting to see what happens next. No one quite knows if there's going to be another eruption or if this is the end, so we're sitting tight and trying to keep a close eye on the situation and hoping for the best.
Olivia Ackland there, speaking to us from Goma, giving us a bit of an insight into what people affected by the weekend's volcanic eruption are going through. In other news, Somalia's foreign minister says the country's leaders have reached a deal in principle for rescheduling elections. No date for polls or details of the discussions have been given yet. Negotiations between political factions began over the weekend in a bid to resolve a political crisis that was deepened last month by the extension of President Farmajo's mandate. Polls had been due to be held in February when his original mandate expired. The delay and Farmajo's continued stay in office sparked clashes on the 25th of April. The situation since de-escalated, but talks remain delicate. Now, May 25th is Africa Day. And this time around, France 24 is working with UNESCO to pull together WAN, a worldwide Afro network. It's a week of celebrations of African culture and achievement, and has already attracted a host of creative voices from the continent. Have a look.
Autant de questions d'actualité, parce que malheureusement l'esclavage demeure une réalité.
So it's the second edition of the event, and every day will offer up summits and conversations about African art, innovation, entrepreneurship, and much, much more. So I'll leave you with some words from some of the heavy-hitting supporters of the event. That's it for Eye on Africa. Do stay with us, more coming up.
My pride, my sense of survival, the fierceness of how I love, that's the African in me. And it's the African in you too. We are one.
Together is one.
L'Afrique a toujours été ensemble. Aujourd'hui, nous devons le réaffirmer.
The new Africa, together as one.
Together as one.
We are one. We are together. We are together as one.